For absolute versus relative URLs, an absolute URL means that it shows the entire website's address from start to finish. So, for example, in an absolute URL, you would see this entire URL from start to end. With a relative URL, you would instead only look at the path after the root domain. So any URL reference would start with this / right here and would not use the HTTPS or the root domain. So a reference to this page we're on would start with / then WP admin. For an example in the website theme, it does by default use absolute URLs. So if we're in like Divi theme options logo, I changed these manually so that they were relative, but let's just start with an absolute and then go back to it so you can see. So let's say we wanted to use the logo, so we click on the logo, hit set. Once you do that, you'll see that it auto imports the full logo. So you actually have to manually change it. So you manually go into the logo and delete out the root domain. So it always starts as soon as the root domain ends. There you go. Whenever you do that, the code will automatically pull in the rest of it when it renders the page in someone's browser. The reason why that's important is because the root domain on a website can change. So maybe 6 months down the road, SDB Denver, for example, decides that they want to be sdbdenver.com with no dash. So we have to move the entire website. If that happens, any reference made to that full absolute URL, like if we hadn't changed this, would no longer be valid, especially when that can be found in, and you know, if it was just these two, it'd be no big deal. However, it can be found in URL references, at least, can be found in posts themselves, they can be found in pages, they can be in CSS files, in JavaScript, in plugin and theme settings, and it's impossible to catch them all. Now, 5 years ago with WordPress sites, when you moved them, this part wasn't as big of a deal because you could download the database, change out the URL in the database using a mass control find and replace move, and then update the URL to the new one. And then you could upload your new database and you were done. However, with modern WordPress websites, that doesn't work anymore because there are serialized strings in the database all over the website. If you don't know what those are, you can Google them, but it's just a different way to reference and save settings. So no matter what happens, if you're using relative URLs, you're setting yourself up for future scalability much, much better. And there's no reason not to either. Like, it's just, it helps and it does, there's no downside to it. So yeah, you know, it does take a little thought at first, but once you get used to it, it actually isn't that hard. So another great example of rel URLs that actually comes up a lot right now is that since Google search has started incorporating whether or not your site is secure, so uses HTTPS versus just uses HTTP into their algorithm, website owners are starting to upgrade all of their websites so that they use SSL, which is HTTPS. That has the same problem. So if we had coded out this whole website using HTTP and then I bought the SSL certificate and switched it over, any reference to HTTP would have to be manually changed. Otherwise, the certificate says that it's invalid. You can't make, on a secure site, you can't make a single reference to a non-secure URL within the site or on any third party. So every single one would have to be discovered and changed out, and any one missing would render the entire website security invalid, which would show up in a browser. So anyways, I hope that helps with relative versus absolute URLs. If you're still confused, though, I can send you a few articles on it about when I learned about it, or anything else you need to know. Thanks. Bye.